Search and rescue efforts have been concluded at the site of the building collapse in the Butemeta area of Lagos. Emergency officials say the death toll stands at 10 after the recovery of last two bodies last night, that of a 4-year-old and a female youth corper who had just concluded her service here. 24 others survived the incident, with all but 2 discharged. The building, located at the popular Ibadan Street, Ebutemeta, which is a densely populated neighborhood, caved in around 9:48 p.m. on Sunday, when many of the occupants were asleep and others observing Salah prayers. Observers say the building had been deficient for over a year and showed obvious signs of danger, but the occupants ignored these signs. The Lagos state officials are expected to move in soon to clear the rubble. Meanwhile, evacuation of residents continues at number 100 Lagos Street, some 200 meters away, another distressed building already marked for demolition. To discuss this issue, civil engineer Ihide Ogolo joins us on the program. A pleasure having you with us.
Good afternoon.
Now, let's begin by having your thoughts about the collapse of yet another building in Lagos. Are you surprised?
I am not at all. A lot of buildings in Lagos are just waiting for that, especially in Ebutemeta, Marina, and those old suburbs. Those buildings have been there for years, and some people are redeveloping them without proper plan, proper structural analysis of anything going on. No soil tests, nobody is looking at. And again, the work going on in the island, all those refilling and all those things, it affects other structures wherever they are. These structures are old structures.
But is that an excuse for them to just, give in at this time? If they were properly, even some of the oldest buildings in this country are still standing.
They were not properly built.
Okay.
They were not properly built. From what I'm even seeing on your screen right now, I'm looking at the reinforcement, the structural work there. You're talking about buildings, and I'm seeing reinforcement of like 8 mm, 9, 10 mm reinforcement. No, you should build. In fact, who designed that building? Even if they designed it 30 years ago, it should be on record in the ministry, if they have proper record, or if it was even designed properly. So these things are not there. So you can't hold anybody responsible. The buildings are just built by developers or maybe one bricklayer and those kind of people. And that is it.
But how long does it really take for physical manifestation of a distressed building to show?
You don't have any time limit. Once, when they are doing structural analysis, you calculate for a lot of things. You even calculate for sound. That's why in your studio here, you have barriers, you have things to block. You calculate for sound, noise, different things. You crack everything, you calculate for it and put it in your structural design so that those things, when they come, the building is able to absorb them. But when you construct a building for like 50 people and 150 people are living on it, 150 activities going into that building at that time, it cannot withstand it. Now so there is no proper timing.
Now, Mr. Ogolo, let's cast our mind back to the Ikoyi building collapse and at the same time the incident in the Butemeta. Two really different areas, one highbrow and the other densely populated. Could there be similarities in the structural issues? You were talking about these structural issues.
Similarities because no professional was involved. The Ikoyi incident is still very fresh in my mind, and there is no contractor to hold. Nobody to hold. All the phone numbers there goes back to the developer who passed on during that thing. So there is no proper, nothing. Even the government people that said they gave 15 floors, who is the person that approved it? Where is the document that they use in approving 15 floors that they now went to 21 or all those kind of things? So it goes back to the way we live in our country. No record, everybody does whatever they like. I can just start a building now. Oh, bricklayer, put this, put that, put that. The bricklayer start telling me what I want to do, and then people are just doing that. So there is no proper checks, nothing.
Now, some say the frequent collapse of the building is systematic problem. It's a really systematic problem where developers, like you mentioned, tend to cut corners, thereby in the long run, endangering lives, what we see in those cases, at least if not immediately, but in the long run.
I agree with them, but somebody aids the developer.
Okay.
For instance, developers go to government office and say, we want approval for 5 floors. You agree. But when they are going to the 7th floor or 10th floor, what do? Do you stop them? Do you go to check what they are doing? Are the structural engineers there, the architect, did they Architects put the drawings together, conceive the idea. Yeah. The structural engineer analyzes it. The civil engineer builds it. Are these people there to do all these things? The quantity surveyor tells you this is the amount for this building. Cost is the problem. Every developer, every person, anybody building a house wants cheap. But the materials are not cheap to build a good house. And they end up spending a lot of money in maintaining it. That is the basic problem we have here. It's our way. It's systemic, yes. But it's our way of life in this country where we just do things the way we like. We do things the way we like everywhere. In this area now, if you go out tomorrow, run an analysis, how many people have building plan? Let's check it out.
Well, Mr. Ogolo, do you think a stress test perhaps would have helped if it was thoroughly carried out?
You just use the word thoroughly. Is there anything thorough? When you say a stress test, now the person from government goes there, they wet the person's farm. He writes a report. It's gone. If it's thoroughly done, it will help because you can now put some structural things in place to help the building. But now, all these tests are done. For instance, when they were doing material testing, somebody comes to your site, picks up the sample. Tomorrow morning, he calls you that your sample is bad. You give him money, he writes it that the sample is good. 10 years later, the building has a problem. Do we go back to that person that signed that thing? Even if the person has retired from the company, we're supposed to go and arrest the person because you did. So we don't do all these things in Nigeria. That's the problem.
But how long do you reckon should it take for a building to come down after it has been marked for demolition?
How long?
Yes.
Building can come down anytime. If the day the building is marked for demolition, government should start evacuating people, take people out, because that is a government property at that point in time.
What about if the people refuse to leave that property?
The people cannot refuse a proper government decision. If the government says, we want this building is not good for you, leave this building. And we do the proper thing, the laws, we follow the laws of the land. The people will not have a choice. It's because people have been doing it, they stay there. That's why they continue to do it. If we show example with one, people will follow.
Now, earlier you mentioned the way, build something about having 50, then you turn out that the building is performing functions meant for 150 people. Does that contribute to the collapse of any building?
It depends.
Okay.
It does. For instance, if you have a bungalow to sit like 5 people in a room, and you now have 25 people in the room, the toilet is overstressed. The sockaway is overstressed. The foundation of the building is overstressed too because the activity is going on there. Even some 50 people there in the room, some of them will bring their friends too. So they've increased to like 75. So it affects everything you do. It's just like a human being. If you overeat, it affects you too. You understand?
Okay, now going forward now, what should the government be doing so that we won't hear these recurring cases of building collapse, especially in the commercial city of Lagos?
Well, it's everywhere in the country. The government should first of all put their acts right. The laws must be followed. Then secondly, the people should understand that it is their house, it's their own economic wealth. They should build it well. Because if you build it well, your cost of maintenance, your cost of a lot of things will reduce. But when you now look for developer, you are looking for this, you are looking for bricklayer, they cause more problem. So let the civil engineers, let the structural engineers do your analysis for you, let the architects work for you. Let's put the things together. Let's put all this together and put up a good structure.
Civil engineer, Mr. Ihede Okolo, a pleasure sharing your thoughts with us on the program.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you.